Okay, so A Course in Miracles, transcription of the shorthand notes, manuscripts of Helen Schuckman, first unproofed draft of the text volume. And then there's more as far as, I would call them the notes, but there's more after the text volume. You've got other parts of the book, but okay. I'm reading from the notes. Prayer can be very specific in little matters. If you need a coat, ask me where to find one. I know your taste well, and I also know where the coat is that you would eventually buy anyway. All right, this is definitely not an ACIM. That paragraph and much of this other stuff coming after it is not in the book, A Course in Miracles. Obviously for good reasons about, I mean, the understanding is that Jesus of Nazareth is channeling through Helen Schuckman with automatic writing. And if he's talking about, where to find a coat and such, that truly is very personal. That's personal, very personal type stuff that's not going to go into A Course in Miracles. Anyway, it does, I'll just continue with the book or the notes here, not the book, the notes. If you don't like the coat afterwards, that is what would have happened anyway. I did not pick out the coat for you. You said you wanted something warm, inexpensive, and capable of taking rough wear. I told you you could get a Borgana, but I let you get a better one because the furrier. Note, however, that it is better in terms of the criteria you established. You saw the coat more that way than in terms of a particular material. Oh my, Borgana is. Then you remembered a coat somebody once got cheaper and seemed. I'm going to just keep looking here. Well, I mean, I'll just say this, that as far as all this information about asking about a coat, absolutely everything should be done in the will of God. If someone understands that as the will of Jesus of Nazareth, that's fine. The will of God. However anyone understands that idea of living in the will of God every moment for everything. These notes were talking about little things, minutia in terms of decisions, moment to moment, but every thought, word, and action, no matter how big or small to the person in that moment, should be, in accord with the will of God. Every moment should be in accord with the will of God. So that's the idea, regardless of what's being said there about the author here, the author being Jesus of Nazareth, talking about Helen getting something. I'm looking through some more here. Remember, the specific answer you get depends on the specific question you ask. The fewer limits you impose, the better the answer you'll get. I mean, what I would say just about that, again, this is not in the book, A Course in Miracles. Clear-cut positive goals is a phrase in A Course in Miracles. I mean, every moment should be filled with purpose and meaning. Nothing should ever be gone into, like, let's just see what happens. Never, not once. So specific answers to specific questions should be lived. Also, though, however, in ACIM, I'm recalling something about the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, or Jesus, or anything else in terms of spiritual forces helping someone out in terms of decisions, thought, speech, all of it. There's a part in the book, it might be in there different ways, more than once, but the idea is, as long as you're asking specific questions about specific things, the Holy Spirit will definitely help you with that. But it's more about finding an overall general way of thinking and being in terms of everything you do moment to moment, or I do, or anyone does, moment to moment, thought, word, and action, moment to moment, a general way of going about those moments perfectly in the will of God would be, the goal. So I'm paraphrasing some ideas in ACIM about that. The shorthand notes continue here. The form of the thought determines the level of creation, which upset me very badly. There's a footnote on this. The form of the thought determines the level of creation. I really don't have anything on that, except that, I would say that, as far as just the phrase there, as far as the form of the thought, there are important ideas about that. All thought creates form in the mind. That is a statement in the book, something like all thinking creates form at some level. It might be the verbatim sentence in A Course in Miracles, but that's the problem for me, you, for anyone, especially for myself. If I go back to my early years, I'm 61, so let's go back to my earliest years, grade school, high school, all the thoughts we have ever thought, all the thoughts anyone has ever thought create form in the mind. And if it's ego stuff, which is incorrect, ego stuff would be that which is not the will of God. It would have something to do with incorrect beliefs or remorse or doubt or fear or anxiety or disappointment or anger or resentment or any of those types of emotions. Any of that type of mental energy going into the mind is what has to come out of the mind, I would say. The ACIM puts it by saying the undoing of that mental energy in the mind, all of it, from a young age, anything that was thought about and talked on or acted on physically, any of it, any of that mental energy, any of that incorrect mental energy has to be undone. Any ego mental energy is in the mind until it's undone. So all the thoughts you, or anyone has ever thought from a young age, and thoughts lead to words and actions, but all of it, in terms of being, forms in the mind, the mental body, it all has to be undone. Anything that's ego has to be undone. Nothing but the perfect will of God can be present in someone's mind for spiritual involvement in ACIM ideas. To me, that's how I would speak on that or on the subject. So, I would add to that the perfect will of God in terms of everything, every thought, word, and action is always there, and it has always been present. So, for example, the belief is Jesus of Nazareth, for example, never thought outside of the will of God. That's why it said that he never sinned. He never went into anything that was an incorrect belief or anger or resentment, or he never did anything that brought himself remorse or anxiety, shame, fear, loneliness, worry, disappointment, sadness. He never did anything along any of those lines. That's what makes him sinless. So everyone, myself, you, everyone has had that reality present, that the God mind present at the same time as making ego choices, which bring those negative emotions, those negative things into one's life. So it's about undoing all that negative ego mental energy and allowing it to be what could have been in terms of the will of God for myself and anyone from a young age, from our very first thought, even from roughly 4 years old or 5 years old, when thoughts and decisions are beginning to come into play. From that moment forward, it's about undoing everything that was ego created and allowing the full God mind to be present. So then in those terms, then anything that was ego, in terms of thought, word, or activity, et cetera, is for one thing, it's completely forgiven. in terms of a human being forgiving himself and forgiving anyone else that had anything to do with any of these ego emotions, etc. So complete and total perfect forgiveness, for one thing. From an early age on, the book talks about face your ego. To me, that's what it's talking about. Go back to those early years and think about that which was incorrect and forgive it and let it go. And also, once that negative ego mental energy is undone, it's forgotten. Forgotten. That's another major idea in A Course in Miracles. Those types of feelings, thoughts, etc., are forgotten, like literally, for real, like literally forgotten. Like, um, um, I mean, and if not completely forgotten, at least completely forgiven, absolutely forgiven. So there's no anger energy behind something I did when I was, in grade school or high school, something I did that I feel bad about even to this day, right? I can recall things that I did that were not the perfect will of God in terms of perfect sinlessness, purity, holiness. A Course in Miracles does not use the words moral. It uses the word virtuous once, but not really about virtuousness. And I believe it uses the word, I know it uses the word righteousness once. Again, not exactly about righteousness, but those ideas apply. I mean, as far as what sinless, pure, and holy is, moral, virtuous, and righteous, and other similar words are perfectly correct in terms of how we have to be. I mean, that's how we have to be. Jesus-like. Jesus was moral majesty. So that's how we're supposed to be. So, anyway, yeah, if not completely forgotten in terms of that which was ego, thought, word, or action, behavior, whatever, if not completely forgotten, no energy to it. In other words, no negative energy to it. In other words, no anger energy behind it. In other words, I'm not feeling regret. I'm not feeling regret or remorse for something I did that was not the perfect will of God at any time in my life, whether that's 5 minutes ago or whether that's as a 5-year-old or any time in our life. Not feeling regret or remorse for not living in the perfect will of God. So I'm looking at the notes. Let me just take a look here. All right. Okay. So, all right. I'm looking at the notes here. Yeah. I mean, perfect forgiveness. Truly, I mean, actual real forgetting of anything that took place that was ego mentality. I suppose that's the major idea about it. And I mean, another major idea about it. Well, I just want to say on what I'm talking about here, the undoing of all that negative mental ego energy into God mind energy. That would be an important truth, an important idea, something that's talked about in ACIM, A Course in Miracles. And then, allowing that to be our present moment, where then my present moment, your present moment, anyone's present moment is filled with joy, peace, strength, goodness, love, beauty, understanding, compassion, gentleness, kindness, all of it, moment to moment, nothing opposing those types of realities whatsoever. Zero anger, resentment, remorse, disappointment, etc., etc. Zero negative emotions, 100% positive emotions in terms of tranquility, peace, joy, strength, and anything similar to those ideas. So, and then be that moment to moment into the eternal future would be one thought about it, one thing I can say at the moment. But another important idea about this, I mean, if I read this sentence here, the form of the thought determines the level of creation. I'm not really discussing that particular sentence. I'm sort of going to A Course in Miracles ideas. And another important one is everybody's thought is creating what's going on in their moment. Zero victimization mentality. You create your own reality through the nature of your beliefs would be the New Age idea. Seth, the spirit being Seth, talked about this through Jane Roberts in such books as Seth Speaks and other books by Seth. But it's that idea that I create my own reality through the nature of my beliefs. Zero victim mentality. This is in the book A Course in Miracles a lot. No, you cannot hold any grievances. You can have no feelings of deprivation. Zero, like zero. Zero grievances, zero feelings of deprivation, absolutely zero. I mean, it could be a fairly large topic. I mean, certainly there's really good sentences in A Course in Miracles on that idea. No grievances, no deprivations. I could talk about it, but that's the idea. It has to be zero. I mean, I'm sure there's more to it. Other things coming up in these notes about that subject, I'm sure, to talk about, later at some future date. But so your thoughts are creating everything that's going on. A sentence in A Course in Miracles about that: you're responsible for what you see. If anything seems to be happening to you that you don't like, you created it. I'm paraphrasing ACIM, but that's the idea. 100% responsibility for everything going on in every moment by everyone at all times. That's a spiritual truth, and it's in A Course in Miracles. So your thoughts are creating my thoughts, anyone's thoughts are creating exactly what's going on physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every way. Our thoughts are creating what is going on in every way, including the physical. So everything starts with the mind. Everything starts with thought. This is this is definitely talked about in ACIM more than one place. As I look through the notes here, we've got more stuff about that's not in the book whatsoever. Okay, so I'll just read here. This is coming from the notes. I've done something very poorly in that he thought they would have to let me go. You were assuring me it would be all night, but I was by no means sure. This one was about, insert here, instructions of the dreams, his, but not dwell on it. Bill got the idea last night. This is okay. So none of this is ACIM whatsoever. It's very, very personal. I'll call it, I don't want to call it babble, but it's very, I don't want to call it babble, but it's very personal type information for Helen Schuckman in terms of her journaling Jesus of Nazareth, her automatic writing of Jesus of Nazareth. This that I'm looking at strictly for her in terms of some type of information, not in the book whatsoever, and I don't see anything there to discuss.